thinking about moving to the Phoenix area in 2025? Well, this video is for you. We're going to cover everything that you need to know. And one thing that people just don't ever talk about, was personally is my favorite thing to discuss. It's just not out there very often because it's not talked about very much, but very important to your daily schedule and living here in Phoenix. Stay tuned. But first, if you want to skip everything and just talk to us, give us a call. Shoot us an email at the contact information right here on the screen. And we would love to have a 15, 30-minute or 60-minute conversation with you, whatever is best for you to discuss your specific goals. You see, we're going on our 20th year of selling real estate right here in the greater Phoenix area, the Valley of the Sun, and we absolutely love it. So we would love to help you out with any questions you have. So we're going to jump into 12 things that you need to know before you move to Phoenix, or maybe you already live here, but you don't know a lot about the greater area of Phoenix. So this will still be a great video for you. You see, what I found selling real estate here in the Valley for about 20 years is, like most Americans, people move every 5 to 7 years on average. And typically when they do, it is not always in the same suburb or within the same city. They'll move to a different suburb within the Phoenix area because people love the Phoenix area, and the population influx to outflux is not even close to each other. The influx is much greater. This is a great video, or maybe just a great reminder of things that you did know but maybe forgot on this video. So first, let's chat a little bit more about the Phoenix area. Some of the most highly ranked cities in the country are located right here in the greater Phoenix area, the Valley of the Sun. And consistently on most of these publications' top 10 list are cities like Chandler, Scottsdale, and Phoenix itself, the Phoenix Mesa area. And also, according to macro trends, 3 of the fastest growing cities in all of America are located right here in the Phoenix area as well. That's Buckeye, Goodyear, and the town of Maricopa. Phoenix has so much to offer that people typically don't leave, or if they do, it's temporarily in the summer because obviously it gets a little toasty, but that also makes for a retirement paradise in the other time of the year when it's not so toasty and people love to spend the majority of the time down here in the Phoenix area. And what's also driving a lot of full-time residents to continue living down here, making Phoenix the 5th largest metropolitan area in all America, is the job sector. Guys, the local economy is on fire. There are so many companies coming down to the Phoenix area for a lot of different reasons. A friendly corporate tax environment. B, it has a very diverse population set. And C, has a very diverse socioeconomic set of people from all different ranges. So it makes it a great place to test multiple different products and ideas, but it also makes a great place for an employment base, an employment center, to bring a part of your company, if not the whole thing, down to the Phoenix area, which a lot of companies are doing. So the local economy is booming, bolstered primarily by the tech sector. Also, another fun fact about Phoenix is that the median age is actually lower than the national US median age. See, Phoenix sometimes can get a bad rap for being a retirement community predominantly, and therefore there's a lot of older people running around town everywhere you go. And that's just not the case, because the median age in Phoenix is actually 34 years old, whereas the median age across America in the bigger cities is at 38 years old. And what is the median income for Phoenix? That's important to know because you have to have the ability to survive when you move to Phoenix. And right now that stands right around $74,000 a year. Number one, you need to know what the cost of living here is in Phoenix. Very important, like we just talked about with the median income and age. And most publications will put the cost of living overall in Phoenix about 3% higher than the national average. So 3% is not bad, especially when you figure that the majority of that cost of living index comes from, at least on the high side, housing. Because Phoenix has had a run in housing over the past 4 years ever since COVID. It's been a big benefactor of population migration into the Phoenix area from other places, but that has caused an imbalance of supply and demand, and therefore prices have shot up dramatically from where they were just 4 years ago. But then you take other places like New York City, San Francisco, and the cost of living is 60 to 70 to 80% higher than the national average. So 3% higher, not too shabby when you compare it to some of those bigger coastal expensive cities. And so even though the median income is about $74,000 a year, that is typically counted as just the median, and that may include a single person or maybe a family of 2 individuals that are married with no kids, or maybe a family with kids. But to comfortably, which is subjective, live in Phoenix, given the current cost of living scenario, and have a family of 2 kids, so 4 total people, you're looking at needing to make somewhere in the ballpark around $117,000 a year to live comfortably in the area. So let's pivot into the second thing, which is housing. And this is really important, guys, because I'm gonna tell you something that I think is extremely important that everyone needs to hear. Right now, the median home price in the Phoenix area is $450,000. However, when you adjust for inflation and when you adjust for seller concession amounts over the past 2 years, even though the median home price 2 years ago was in the $390,000 range, the equivalent, given those two things, of your buying power sets you back to where prices were just 2.5 years ago in the second quarter of 2022. So for anyone out there who's like, well, I missed the boat because prices have gone up, on paper, when you see the same house now, that's true. The price has gone up. But when you take inflation into consideration, you take the seller concession amounts into inflation that have gone up considerably, it gives you the same buying power that you had in the second quarter for a house in 2022. So you've been just given a time machine, a gift of going back to buy at 2.5 years ago prices, given the relative data in the marketplace and what the economy is currently doing. So that is huge. So if you have any questions about buying, please give us a call. We would love to help you out. 480-660-5974. So let's stick with the housing. Let's pivot right into renters, because there's something for people who want to rent as well. Now, the average monthly rent across the entire area, which again is a big metroplex, is looking right around $1,550 a month. But again, that's the average across everything from the high-end rentals all the way down to the studio apartments. Again, that doesn't take into consideration VRBOs and furnished rentals like that, because that would really skew the information. We're talking longer-term, 12-month minimum leases throughout the Phoenix area. So there's something for everyone, from downtown condos, the urban feel, the walkability of downtown Phoenix or Old Town, downtown Scottsdale, to the high end of Paradise Valley and North Scottsdale, to more the working class area where rentals thrive in the Surprise, Peoria, Glendale area in the Northwest Valley. And all across Valley, there's different segments, as with most cities, from newer houses to older houses, that give you and all play a factor in terms of how much you're gonna pay per rent. So there's pros and cons with owning and renting. Obviously, as a realtor, I think homeownership is one of the best things you can do financially for yourself or your family for a long term, as a long-term play, but that doesn't mean it's right for everybody at its current moment. So whatever questions you have about either one, we'd be happy to help. The fourth thing on the list that you need to be aware of is that Phoenix is extremely spread out. It's called the Greater Phoenix area for a reason. There are 17 major suburbs and cities throughout the Greater Phoenix area, but that doesn't include all of them. There are actually more than 20, but there are 17 that are considered major suburbs and cities in the area. So it's very spread out. And the running joke is that you're always 20 minutes away from anything you need. Now, obviously, some things you need are going to be a lot closer to depending on where you live, but you're always 20 minutes away because it's spread out. And yet there are still a lot of services and businesses and commercial activity to service the vast majority of residential living spaces and areas across that Greater Phoenix area. So with that, the main mode is going to be transportation in a car. There's not a whole lot of public transportation options. There is a city bus, there is a light rail, but again, they are limited in scope in terms of the areas they service. They do not service the entire metroplex of all the Phoenix area. And so the mode for most people is going to be transportation by car. Electric vehicles have become more and more popular in Phoenix because, again, you're driving so much, it is a little cheaper to operate an electric vehicle when it comes to the cost of your electricity versus gas. But what you gotta love are two subsets of this category within Phoenix. And that first subset is gonna be the fact that the airport is very centralized. The main airport, Phoenix Sky Harbor, is located right in the center of the Greater Phoenix area, which is very rare for a big city. Typically, the airports are on more the outskirts of a city because of the noise. However, the way that the flight paths are structured, you have a lot of commercial industrial around the airport, and therefore it's centered very well. So no matter if you live in the West Valley or East Valley, north or south, you have a centralized airport to get to, so you're never too far, terribly too far away from the airport. And Phoenix has a secondary commercial airport out in the East Valley, the Williamsfield Gateway Airport, which is becoming bigger and bigger, with Allegiant Airlines as one of the main airlines there, and they will be adding more and more commercial airlines to that airport as well in the future. And the second thing, B, is going to be that the city is laid out extremely well. Because Phoenix is one of the newer cities in America compared to East Coast cities or places like that, it is set out on a grid system, which is very nice. More modernized from that standpoint. It's laid out on a grid system throughout the entire city for the most part. And so it's very easy to get from one main road to the next main road because you know it's about one city block, whether you're going north or south or east and west. So it doesn't take a long time to figure out how to get around the area of Phoenix. Now, there are some curves and things like that, of course, because it is in a valley. There are mountain ranges that actually get in the way of some transportation flow, but for the most part, it's very easy to get around. It's very easy to understand, and you know exactly how to get around, which is great. The interstate system is awesome, and Phoenix continues to improve upon that, adding more and more freeways throughout the main Phoenix area. There are 2 new state routes which are set to come online as freeways here in the near future, and that's State Route 30 and State Route 24. And they're going to both be expanded over the next several years, which is going to increase better traffic flow. And it's already not that bad when it comes to other major cities like Seattle, Chicago, Los Angeles, etc. Now, at this point, I have to add number 5. Number 5 is going to be, you better love the heat. Now, if you're a snowbird, that's not going to apply to you because you're going to come out here and you're going to experience the awesome season, which I affectionately call awesome, which is between the months of October and May, and then you're probably going to leave. You might even come down for just a month or 2 and then leave as well in those 8-month periods. But for those 4 months, specifically June through September, it is hot. You better love the heat if you're gonna be living here year round. But yet a lot of people who do live here year round will skate for several weeks throughout the summertime, maybe a month or 2 as well, and go on vacation or whatever they can do to get out of the heat somewhere up north or even to the East Coast. But there's no way around it. Phoenix is hot. You are in the Sonoran Desert. You are in a desert, and deserts are hot. Now, I will say, sidebar, the Sonoran Desert is probably the one desert I would definitely want to live in if I had to be in a desert in the summertime, because the barren wasteland of sand that you might think of in other deserts around the world is not really like this desert and what it's about. This is the only place in the world that you will see cacti and saguaros, and it is gorgeous if you actually love that landscape. Actually, when it does rain in the spring, it actually does receive rain. It gets real green for a desert, which is beautiful as well. And of course, the cacti are green already year round, no matter what. So it's beautiful natural desert landscape. But let's focus on that heat because there's no way around it. There was records set last year for the most amount of days over 110 degrees in a row. That's right. And that number was 56 days in a row. And that was only surpassed by the year before, where there was 55 days in a row of about 110 degree temperatures or greater. So it does get hot. You do somewhat adapt to it because your blood will thin out. And I know this because when I go back to my hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, I am not as tough as I thought I once was, because when it gets to be around like 55, 50 degrees, I have like a winter parka on now, because I think my blood living down here in Phoenix for 20 years has now adapted more so to the hotter temperatures. So you make sure you lather on the sunscreen, you make sure you stay hydrated, and make sure you try to stay in the shade as much as possible. But the reality is you do go from indoor air conditioning to indoor air conditioning for most of that time of the year. And so let's pivot to number 6, which is going to be monsoons and haboobs. That's right, I didn't say that incorrectly. Haboobs are what they're called. They are huge dust storms that occur during monsoon season, which is typically June through August. Primarily, I would say more so it's July, late July and August, but they do technically call it June through August, so we'll go with that. But the reality is that the monsoons don't provide most of the time a lot of rain. So it's not like a tropical monsoon that you would think in these island countries across the world. These are dry monsoons that do rain. They definitely do rain, and they pour down rain when it does, but not as much as you would think. It's more so a lot of wind, and there can be microbursts where they uproot trees and that kind of stuff and cause some destruction, which is not okay. And these haboobs can be as high as 40, 50 feet in the air, and it's a huge sandstorm that comes in, and it just gets everything a little dusty. It's hard to drive in if you're caught in the middle of it, so a lot of people will pull over or go really slow with their flashers on, and it will last for typically 5, 10, 15 minutes, usually the most, and then it blows right through. They don't happen a ton, but they will happen in the monsoon season from time to time, so just something to be aware of. The world is not ending when you see a haboob, although it kind of looks like it. Let's go to number 7, family entertainment. There are a ton of options for this. Now, I'm assuming you probably already expect that, being the fact that Phoenix is a large area, but the one thing you may not know is that currently Phoenix doesn't have a huge amusement park in the city, which I find just bizarre, because there is nice weather all year long. Yes, it's very hot in the summertime, but you can still operate these machines when it's hot, and people will still go out there typically when it's hot, especially if you get like a cheaper ticket out or something of that nature, but they don't. It's very bizarre to me. Not a lot of rain, no snow, and so for some reason, it just doesn't exist. Now, they are building the VAI Resort out in Glendale and the Mattel Adventure Park, which is going to have a couple of different roller coasters that are fairly large, which is awesome to see because I think Phoenix really needs something like that. It'd be great to have a Six Flags amusement park, but we don't. Now, we do have a Six Flags amusement park, but it's a water park. Okay, it's called Six Flags Hurricane Harbor, and it's a great place to go. But again, that's a water park. But I do think the Mattel Adventure Park is going to be a hit because Phoenix could use something like that. But in addition to that, there are plenty of things to do, from indoor skydiving to putt-putt golf everywhere. Pop stroke is one. You have indoor, outdoor putt-putt golf, you name it, you get to choose. There is so much to do when it comes to family entertainment. There are indoor skate parks, there are indoor ninja parks, there are indoor gaming parks, Dave and Buster's type things. There's indoor pickleball. There's outdoor pickleball, of course. And so the list goes on and on and on. There's the Children's Museum of Phoenix, which is an amazing museum to go if you had the chance to check it out. There's the Legoland Discovery Center. There's the Arizona Science Center. And there is an art scene that is really second to none. A lot of museums, and the art scene is great too. The Heard Museum, the Phoenix Art Museum, Ballet Arizona, the Phoenix Symphony, and those are just a few of many of the art scene and what it has to offer. Not to mention the Musical Instrument Museum. And again, it's just a robust list that would take too long. I could do a video on just the museums and art scene here in the Phoenix area, but it is really good. And so there's no shortage at all of things to do for family entertainment in Phoenix. Number 8 will be outdoor activities. Whether you do them by yourself, friends, or as a family, outdoor activities are abundant throughout the Phoenix area. One of the reasons you live in Phoenix is because you like an outdoor lifestyle. So you have things like ATV tours out in the desert, which are amazing. If you haven't done one of those, it's phenomenal. Pink Jeep tours as well out in the desert. You have the Desert Botanical Gardens. You have the Phoenix Mountain Preserve, the South Mountain Preserve. There are more hiking and biking trails, mountain biking, road biking, your choice, but more hiking and biking trails than probably most cities across America. There is so much to do. And what I love about the Sonoran Desert is that it's not flat. There are mountains. We sit in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix, Arizona. We sit in the valley and there's mountains surrounding the entire area and within the area that the city works around. And so there are trails everywhere to go hike, bike, to get scenic shots and really enjoy nature at its finest living in Arizona. And then of course, if you like a good game of golf, you came to the right place. Scottsdale, Arizona is known as the Mecca of the golf world. And Phoenix in general has over 200 golf courses to choose from. So whether you want a Midwest layout type course that's more open with a lot of grass, those actually do exist in the Sonoran Desert, or you want the traditional target golf with desert golf courses, which are gorgeous and beautiful. And I highly recommend if you're not from here, you play those for sure. It all exists. A lot of different country clubs, private courses, public courses. And if you're feeling a little brave and want to go out earlier in the morning and do it in the summertime, you can sometimes play a course that might be $300 to $400 for a tee time. Those green fees can drop down to $50, $60, $70 in the summertime, and you get to play a special course for very cheap, as long as you're brave enough to weather that sun and the heat. Number 9, for you families out there, the schools. So schools are very diverse. There's a lot of different school districts in the Phoenix area, and there are rankings for these school districts as well. Now, typically the top 5 districts are a combination of the following: Scottsdale Unified School District, Chandler Unified School District, the Gilbert Public Schools, Kyrene School District, and the Paradise Valley Unified School District. Usually those 5 are in the mix for the top 5 most years, year in and year out. But there is a plethora of private and charter schools to choose from, and they are scattered throughout the entire valley. So if you want to have a private education, whether it's more of a Catholic background or a Christian background, whatever it may be, there is something for you in the Phoenix area, almost anywhere that you live. So without going down a rabbit hole on the school districts, I do have a couple videos on that on the YouTube channel. Please be sure to check those out, or give us a call, 480-660-5974, and we'd be happy to walk you through anything that has to do with schooling, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, or even universities that we have knowledge on. Number 10 is going to be the food scene in Phoenix. Now, if I was recording this video about 15 years ago, I would tell you the food scene is average in Phoenix. Pretty average at best, actually. I've been living down here for 20 plus years, and I know from experience the food scene was pretty average. For the past 5 to 10 years, that has changed dramatically. The food scene is phenomenal, with a lot of different cool concepts, specific concepts influenced by ethnicities all across the world right here in Phoenix when it comes to the food scene. But it should come as no surprise that the Phoenix food scene is dominated by the Southwestern flair, the Mexican and Native American influences and cultures, and also a lot of farm to table freshness when it comes to food as well. Now, there are great restaurants all across the valley, but the highest concentration of good restaurants, in my humble opinion, are gonna be located in Old Town Scottsdale, Central Phoenix, and North Central Phoenix. And those areas will have the best and most diverse, with a lot of options, choices when it comes to a phenomenal food scene in the overall Phoenix area. Number 11 is going to be 2 areas in one. That's right, guys. A lot of different cities across America have their different pockets of areas and people and ethnicities and so on and so forth where people might congregate. Now, we're not going to get involved with all of that in Phoenix, but I will tell you this. As you know, Phoenix is called the Valley of the Sun for its sunshine. It's 300 plus days of sunshine every single year. So if you love the sun, this is the place for you. Even with the heat, this is the place for you. So it is called the Valley of the Sun for that reason. However, there is the West Valley and the East Valley, and they are fairly distinct and they are different. They are fairly distinct and they are different in many different ways. Predominantly speaking, you're going to pay more for housing. There are more white-collar jobs on that side of the valley, and the people that live in the East Valley typically are more white-collar workers. On the West Valley, you're going to have more blue-collar jobs, you're going to have more blue-collar workers, and the housing on average is going to be a little bit cheaper. Now, that's just a general statement, as there are luxury homes in the West Valley, and there are pockets on the East Valley that are not as luxurious and nice as well. So it just depends, and there are niches everywhere, and that's why having a great realtor who knows the area will be able to help you determine where it is you may want to be. But where is that definition of that boundary kind of lie? Well, there is Central Avenue right down the middle of the valley. On the West Valley, everything is avenues. First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue, it goes out from there. On the East Valley, there are streets. First Street, Second Street, Third Street, and goes out from there. So technically, Central Avenue would be the boundary, but more generally speaking, the I-17 is like a main artery that cuts right down the heart of the greater Phoenix area, and that kind of is the boundary for general purposes. So west of the I-17, you're gonna have the West Valley, and east of the I-17, you're gonna have the East Valley, and that includes a bunch of different suburbs on both sides. So give us a call if you have any questions about that, but that is something you should know when you're looking to maybe settle in one of these suburbs or towns. And number 12 is a fun one for me, save the best for last, I guess, right? Which is the thing that no one really talks a lot about, but is very real and will mess up your day, your schedule to an extent if you're not paying attention to it, at least for a day or two. And that is the lack of daylight savings time. That's right, in Arizona, guys, there's no daylight savings time. There's no spring forward, there's no fall back. We are on 2 different time zones throughout the course of the year. So in the wintertime, we are on Mountain Time Zone, and in the summertime, we are in the Pacific Time Zone, and it can be somewhat confusing. Now, for Arizonans, once you're used to it, no problem at all. If you live out of state, it is very confusing to most people because they're like, wait, what? You're 1 hour behind us, right? No, you're now 2 hours behind us? When did it change? How did it change? Why is that changing? I'm confused. Well, don't be confused anymore. That's why you watch Everything Phoenix and our YouTube channel, to not be confused about anything when it comes to Phoenix. But this is one I want to have a little fun with because it is kind of odd that Arizona as a state does not recognize daylight savings time. So at the end of the day, the main thing it will affect are your shows, your maybe TV shows that you want to watch, or your live sporting events that you want to watch. It will affect that. And if you are someone who works along with the stock market in the financial industry at all, it's going to affect you as well. Part of the year, you'll be waking up probably a little bit earlier to make sure you're open with the market, and part of the year, you'll be sleeping in just a little more. Good news is, if you're in the Pacific time zone, you get off a little earlier too. And obviously in the Mountain Time Zone, you'll be working a little later in the day. Guys, I hope you enjoyed our video of the things you need to know when you're considering moving to the Phoenix area, or maybe moving within a different area within the Valley of the Sun. So give us a call with any questions, 480-660-5974, and we would love to help you out with anything that you have. And check us out right here on our Instagram page at Kelly Cook Homes, put out daily content for your personal enjoyment and education. So don't forget to call me. Call me.